Discover the incredible transformation of San Miguel's colder millionaire awakened by a little G. William Harper stood in the middle of his sprawling estate, a monument to wealth and ambition, yet it felt like a cage. The cold marble beneath his polished shoes seemed to mock him. The news of his father's passing had reverberated through the halls like a haunting echo, stirring the memories of a man William had never bothered to really know. He was the millionaire standing in the dark, lost in self-made isolation, wrapped in the shiny armor of success. Yet the luxurious surroundings that once filled him with pride only served as constant reminders of his father's artistic vision, the very essence of creativity William had spent his life avoiding. As he rummaged through his father's belongings, he stumbled upon an old diary hidden between crisp papers and expensive artworks that depicted a narrative he never knew, one filled with creativity and struggle overshadowed by societal expectations. The ink danced across the pages, sharing an intimate story of familial affection toward art and culture, a legacy the relentless pursuit of wealth had extinguished. A tremor rippled through him as he read his father's reflection. It struck a chord deep within. Insecurity gnawed at his gut. What was success if it came at the price of family, joy, and meaning? Later, with the diary clenched tightly in hand, he found himself wandering the local art market, a chaotic realm alive with vibrant colors and spirited voices. It was here he stumbled upon G, a young artist with a zeal for life and creation. Her easel stood amidst a sea of energy, fully alive, as paint glided across the canvas, each stroke a testament to her passion. In that moment, William felt his armor crack ever so slightly. He wanted to dismiss her, to call her naive. She represented everything he had long suppressed, and yet there was something magnetic about her, an electricity that held the power to shock life back into him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weeks that followed were a blurred whirlwind of dreams and stark realities. Together with G, William began to explore the art he had once shunned, and for the first time, he felt a sense of belonging, a resonance with the world around him. Yet, each moment of budding friendship was met with hesitant doubts. His peers scorned him behind his back, taunting him as the cold millionaire turned wannabe artist. The gnashing of their contempt clawed at his pride. Each biting comment left him grappling with a suffocating confusion of purpose and belonging. Would he ever escape the expectations that tightly bound him? As accolades began to trickle in for his art, pieces that evoked his family's legacy, he was faced with an unbearable quandary. Would a lucrative auction that could elevate his profile mean exploiting G's talent for validation's sake? The moment hung heavy, as years of ambition confronted a fragile integrity. The taste of success dripped with deception, tearing him apart. Standing at the precipice, his heart raced, and for a fleeting instant, the weight of each choice pressed down like a vice. Would he give in to the suffocating ambition, or embrace the urgency of authenticity? Doubt eclipsed clarity, swirling as he grappled with who he hoped to become and who he truly was. The clash of worlds swirled around him, leaving him on the brink of realization. But where would he land? William awoke the next day daunted by an internal battleground. The echoes of mockery from his peers clashed violently with the burgeoning thrill of artistic expression. In that fragmented morning light, he sat in his study, pages of his father's diary strewn around him like fallen leaves. Each line whispered encouragement, urging him to confront his truth rather than retreat into the cold comfort of wealth. What would his father have wanted? He pondered. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. His gaze fell on a blank canvas in the corner, a memento of his burgeoning creative journey. He hesitated, then approached it. This time, he didn't merely examine the canvas. He considered it a mirror reflecting his soul. Could he truly pour himself into art without fearing judgment or ridicule? The thought both exhilarated and terrified him. It was far too easy to dismiss this war within him as a fleeting phase, a passing infatuation with a simple life. But guilt, thick and heavy, gnawed at him. The auction loomed ahead, its promise of fame almost intoxicating, yet he feared that winning it would come at the cost of his scruples. Leaving the estate that morning, William resolved to seek G out. He needed her perspective, a voice that hadn't been tainted by the ambition that had consumed him for so long. Her passion was pure, radiating from her like a beacon. He found her in the vibrant market again, surrounded by colors that mirrored the tumult of his thoughts. As she painted, each brush stroke appeared to set her spirit aflame, and for a moment, he envied the clarity she embodied. "G," he called, startling her. She turned, and her smile unfurled like a blossom under the sun. "Can we talk?" With a nod, she stepped away from her easel, wiping her hands on her apron. "What's up?" "I'm at a crossroads," he began, his voice thick with uncertainty. "The auction. There's a chance I could be recognized as an artist, make a name for myself. But at what cost? I feel like I'd be exploiting both you and your work." Her eyes sparked with understanding, dissecting the layers beneath his words. "William, you're not exploiting anyone if you're honest about it. Art is a collaboration. But if you want to make it all about status, then you need to look in the mirror." His gut twisted at her straightforwardness. It would have been easier if she had offered him empty encouragement or old cliches. Instead, she asked him to confront the very fabric of his motivations. "What do you really want?" she asked. The question echoed in his mind, causing a shift. He thought of his father, the man whose legacy had been suffocated under pounds of precious stones and money. "I want to feel real," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought success was about wealth, but I realize now that it's about expression, about capturing life." She regarded him deeply, as if peering through layers of self-doubt. "Then let that drive you, not the auction. Create for the sake of creating. If it resonates, it'll find its way to the world." A flicker of understanding began to illuminate the shadows of his doubt. Maybe this was the moment that would redefine everything: his motivations, his desires, and the very notion of what it meant to succeed. With renewed determination, William returned to the blank canvas in his study. As he stood before it, a clear vision began to take shape in his mind. This would be his declaration, an authentic expression of his journey, free from the chains of expectation and ambition. But as he prepared to paint, doubt slithered back, hissing in curdled whispers. Would ambition, that seductive beast lurking in the shadows, allow him even this moment of clarity? In the depths of the silence, he couldn't escape the looming auction, where the clash between authenticity and success would shatter him once more. What road lay before him? Would he have the courage to stay true to his artistry, or would the crown of recognition eclipse his newfound vision? There was no more time to ponder, only the act of creation awaited him. But as he picked up the brush, reality loomed ominously. The auction was closer than he had anticipated, and with it, inevitable confrontations awaited. The brush hovered just above the canvas, poised but trembling with the weight of uncertainty. William stared at the pristine surface, a battlefield of passion and repression. The golden promises of the auction pulsed at the back of his mind like a distant drumbeat, urging him to succumb to the allure of fame and fortune. But that nagging doubt, a persistent reminder of everything he stood to lose, clawed at him with unforgiving ferocity. As he dipped the bristles into paint, he felt the texture beneath them, a sacred opportunity to merge his vision with color. The first stroke was tentative, a whisper of blue that slowly unraveled into an apparition of his hopes. A spontaneous explosion of colors soon followed, beyond the confines of expectation. Each movement of his hand sent ripples of uncertainty into the air, and yet, paradoxically, it felt liberating. The act of creating began to wash away the burden accumulating within him. With each subsequent stroke, he engaged in a silent dialogue with himself. Here, he could confront the emotions buried deep beneath layers of privilege and expectation. G's words echoed in his mind. Create for the sake of creating. That profound simplicity resonated as he painted, pulling him back to the elemental instinct of artistic expression. He rediscovered the childlike thrill of playing with colors. It reinforced that a masterpiece might emerge, not through the promise of validation, but through the authenticity of his journey. Yet, the memories of judgment lingered like shadows. The laughter from his peers rang clear and taunting. He felt the pressure of their expectations hovering over him, always demanding more than the man he wanted to become. Was he still that self-conscious boy aiming to fit in? The one who wore an expensive facade to mask insecurity? With every brushstroke, he confronted these ghosts, dissecting their influence on his present self. They had shaped him, but could no longer dictate his future. Days slipped by as he immersed himself in the rhythm of creation. The blank canvas transformed into a collage of vibrant emotions. Joy tinged with sorrow, freedom interwoven with doubt. William began to let go, to trust himself and his instincts. The more he revealed his truth on canvas, the better he understood the intricacies of his desires. He was not simply seeking recognition. It was something deeper, a quest for meaning, a desire to share his own narrative through color and form. But with clarity came inevitable anxiety. The auction, with its swirling momentum, loomed inescapably in the background. As the date drew closer, each day felt like a countdown to a confrontation he wasn't sure he wanted to face. He felt torn, aware that captivating an audience could leave him vulnerable, exposed. Would they connect with his authentic expression, or would they prefer the polished perfection crafted by convention? He found himself longing for G's laughter, her approach to life unblemished by fear. He needed her insight, her influence tugging him back toward purpose rather than vanity. But the more he painted, the more he felt like a solitary figure on the edge of a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. Each evening he would step back from the canvas, his heart racing. This piece of art was more than just pigment. It was a revelation of everything he had faced and the transformation he hoped to achieve. Would he emerge victorious or defeated by the expectations he could no longer ignore? With the auction creeping closer to reality, William faced a definitive moment. The choice was clear: to embrace the voice within him that championed authenticity, or to let ambition suffocate his artistic evolution. As he stood on the brink, brush in hand, he acknowledged that this journey was no longer just about the auction or success, but rather about the resolve to remain true to himself, a connection to his father's legacy that he yearned to embrace. Yet, the auction's drumbeat persisted, ever closer, keeping him teetering at a crossroads of authentic creation and hollow recognition. Did he have the courage to present his truth before an audience that may or may not appreciate it? He would have to confront the heart of the matter soon, for the time had come to finally face the judgment that awaited. An understanding dawned within him. What would it cost to display a vulnerable expression of himself? And would it be enough to carry him past the tempest that threatened to consume him? In the days that followed, William lost himself in a whirlwind of color and emotion, yet the auction date edged closer, gnawing at his thoughts with relentless insistence. Each session at the easel evolved into a duel between his ambitions and his authenticity. While the vibrant masterpiece burgeoned with life, a looming fear coiled in the depths of his mind, a pressure cooker of looming judgments and potential rejection. Amid the cacophony of color, he began to see shapes forming, shadows of what was both familiar and foreign. Each hue carried the weight of his unspoken fears and lingering desires. The brush once felt alien in his grip, like an untested weapon, but now it represented his power to transform the chaos within. Luminescent yellows danced with brooding indigos, blurring the lines between despair and hope, a mirror reflecting his tumult. Yet each stroke brought a revelation wrapped in a paradox. The deeper he delved into his truth, the clearer his life's narrative transformed. He could feel the longing for approval receding, replaced by an insistent yearning to articulate his own reality. He began to understand not only the terror of exposure, but also the exhilarating possibility of sharing his unique perspective. The need for validation was dissipating, replaced by a desire for connection and understanding. Painting became less about the outside world and more about the internal dialogue he had sought to suppress. However, epiphanies could not stave off anxiety. As the auction loomed, he found himself questioning whether he was prepared to bare his soul. Would he be courageous enough to risk unveiling the rawness of his spirit for all to see? What would happen if they scrutinized his work closely, dissecting it piece by piece, unearthing any traces of insecurity hidden beneath layers of paint? He had thought long and hard about what G might say. She had always seen through facades, championing authenticity above reputation. The last words they exchanged about art echoed in his mind, a promise of liberation tied to deeper understanding. Yet now, facing the imminent judgment of others, he grappled with the certainty of vulnerability. William's heart raced when he stepped back from the canvas, scanning the symphony of colors for any sign it could be perceived as worthy. Would it resonate? Would it fall flat? The unrelenting march toward the auction painted him into a corner, each passing day laced with uncertainty, the familiar tug of doubt clawing back into his spirit. He could sense the consistent beat intensifying, yet he clung to the notion that purpose could outweigh fear. What if, just perhaps, the auction held an opportunity even bigger than recognition? Could it be a breaking point, a catalyst for redefining who he was in this moment and who he could become? The thoughts spiraled louder, coalescing into a resolve to not only reveal this artwork, but to expose the essence of himself. He forged a plan, one that required him to funnel his trepidation into the colors on the canvas. His emotional landscape would become part of the story, a heartfelt invitation for those willing to join him in exploring the human condition. Yet, with each decision made, the gravity of his choice burgeoned, a fragile truth requiring monumental courage. As the day approached, William felt a crackling anticipation in the air. The auction represented not merely a chance for commercial success, but a pivotal moment to embrace his evolution, to reclaim his identity through his work. His heart thudded with an electrifying blend of excitement and trepidation. What if the leap into uncertainty led him to discover passions long buried under critical expectations? And as the final brush dipped into the paint, he knew this was more than art. It was a fusion of spirit and authenticity, his metamorphosis laid bare. He closed his eyes, allowing the brush to guide him as a familiar whisper arose from within. Create for the sake of creating. But as he sealed the final stroke of his artwork, a sudden revelation struck him. Was he truly ready for this moment? Would his conviction withstand the scrutiny of the world awaiting him? The auction was now just hours away, and he stood before a piece he could call his own, a testament more meaningful than any accolades could achieve. But with the realization that his true battle was just beginning, a bitter taste of doubt intermingled with exhilaration lingered. Would his art shine bright, or would it crumble under the weight of the expectations he so desperately yearned to shed? The moment of truth was upon him, and with it came the understanding that this unveiling would redefine everything. What would it reveal about William? What awaited him on the other side of this pivotal night? William awoke on the day of the auction with a tight knot in his stomach. It was a physical manifestation of the turmoil swirling in his mind. He had devoted countless hours to crafting the piece now hanging in the gallery, but as its unveiling approached, doubts began to rain down on him like an unrelenting storm. The sun streamed through the window, but the warmth it offered felt distant, dwarfed by the anxious chill that shadowed him. He stared at the canvas, a vibrant testament to his struggles and triumphs. Each color had emerged from the depths of his psyche, yet the closer he got to letting it connect with an audience, the more paralyzed he felt. The thought of standing before critics, art buyers, and enthusiasts filled him with a familiar dread. The fear that how they perceived him would be tied directly to this piece. How had he let it come to this? In moments of clarity, he considered stepping back. Yet the thought of retreating gnawed at him. This was more than mere art. It was the embodiment of his journey, a journey towards authenticity that he had only just begun to traverse. He whispered to himself as if seeking counsel. What if this exposure is liberation, not judgment? But doubt quickly countered, making him question his own declarations. He dressed with the care that felt foreign. Each button and fold was an affirmation of the new William he wished to present to the world. As he secured his tie, he studied his reflection. The man stood before him was no longer the hesitant artist he once was, but the creator of his own narrative. Though that truth no longer felt wholly reassuring. The gallery, when he arrived, vibrated with an air of buzzing anticipation. Guests were milling about, some laughing, others pondering pieces that hung on the walls, unaware of the storm brewing within him. This was the moment he had envisioned since beginning his journey, yet the reality caught him off guard. The vividness of the paintings contrasted with the somber palette of his emotions. William's legs carried him through the crowd almost on autopilot, yet his thoughts spun in chaotic circles. He wondered if G would be here, lending strength to his belief in authenticity. He searched for familiar faces, glancing over hopeful crowd members, but soon lost himself to the anxiety of standing alone before potential critics. As the minutes wore on, he felt a shift. He caught snippets of conversations about anticipation, about the artist behind the canvas, punctuated by laughter and glimpses of expectation. The darkness that had surrounded him began to ebb, replaced by a flicker of resolve. Could he do this? Could he share his truth, knowing it might resonate with at least one soul in this crowded room? A voice beside him broke his reverie. It's quite a piece, isn't it? A middle-aged woman with an air of elegance regarded his painting with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. Her tone was genuine, and for a moment, it dulled the tension coiling within his chest. Yes, he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. It represents something deeply personal. He debated whether to offer more, but held back, not wanting to invite scrutiny just yet. Art should speak, she remarked. And from my impression, yours seems to scream. It was the catalyst he needed. Encouraged by her words, he felt the urge to break through the barriers he had built around himself. He shared the intent behind the piece, how colors collided to reflect his fears and aspirations. The conversation blossomed, exploring deeper philosophies, revealing the unseen connections between emotion and expression. As laughter poured from the duo, William realized that his vulnerability wasn't just a wound, it was an invitation. He began to engage more deeply with others who approached, gradually shedding layers of self-imposed isolation. The dialogue that existed beyond the realm of traditional artistry, this was what he had been yearning for. But amidst the connections, a pulsating backstage anxiety reverberated. Moments remained before his piece would be revealed, but he found a resolve brewing within him. The fabric of his artistry and personal growth was woven together, and exposing it would not signify weakness. It would be his moment of triumph. As the crowd began to gather, all eyes drifting toward the appointed time of unveiling, William stood taller. The dance between fear and exhilaration rippled within him, signaling the beginning of an uncharted journey. He knew this was not just about the auction, but about reclaiming the narrative of his life. Yet a lingering question haunted him. Was he prepared for the ramifications of unveiling both the canvas and his truth? Would he remain steadfast, or would the spotlight reveal shadows he had not yet confronted? As he stood poised for the inevitable, William faced the threshold of his metamorphosis, teetering on the edge of vulnerability and revelation. What awaited him on the other side of this pivotal moment? The clock ticked down ominously, and his answer remained just out of reach. The moment arrived like a distant drum roll, the vibrations echoing through William's chest. As the gallery owner stepped onto the small podium, a hush fell over the attendees. William could feel the collective anticipation settle heavily in the air, charged with unspoken expectations. His heart raced, not merely from the impending revelation of his art, but from the potential scrutiny of a life laid bare. Would they understand? Would they see the heart and soul nested within the chaotic swirls of color? The thought was a double-edged sword, promising both validation and piercing critique. With a deep breath, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the polished glass of a gallery fixture. This was not just the unveiling of a painting, it was the unveiling of himself, stripped of pretense, vulnerable, yet resilient. Each stroke on the canvas mirrored a chapter of his life, a manifestation of his struggles, and a celebration of his survival. The gallery owner's voice cut through his thoughts. And now, without further ado, I present to you William's exquisite creation. As the cloth fell away, William's breath caught. There it was, his artwork, the chaotic yet beautiful eruption of colors and emotions. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by a momentary silence, and then conversations broke out. Some hushed, some animated. Information flowed like electricity, punctuated by laughter. "Remarkable," someone exclaimed, and another chimed in. "It captures the essence of..." What? Chaos? Passion? William felt warmth wash over him, a strange mixture of pride and trepidation. This was the response he had craved, an acknowledgement of his journey from darkness to light. Yet, there was still that gnawing doubt. Did they truly see him? Or were they simply enchanted by the facade he had created? Eager to connect, he took a step forward into the crowd. Each interaction felt like a revelation. One person pointed out the deeper narrative hidden within the layers. Another recounted their own struggles, how the piece resonated with their experiences. This was what he had needed. Genuine dialogue, a bridge built from shared experiences and vulnerabilities. But then, amidst the vibrant exchanges, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was G, his mentor, eyes piercing with a light that cut through the noise around them. Approaching with an air of confidence, G nodded approvingly, but there was something else in his expression, an urgency that whispered of an underlying challenge. "What do you think?" William asked, struggling to keep the quiver from his voice. G leaned in closer, his voice low yet charged. "Your painting is the first step, William. But remember this, the real challenge lies in sustaining this authenticity beyond this moment." The weight of G's words settled heavily in William's mind. Yes, he had exposed his soul, but what would happen when the applause faded? How would he navigate the professional landscape without crumbling under the weight of expectations or slipping back into the shadows of self-doubt? He nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand. This is just the beginning." Yet, that certainty flickered, and an unsettling thought crept in. Could he maintain this newfound vulnerability when the accolades ceased? As G stepped back into the crowd, William felt the tension coalesce again. The moment was exhilarating, yet deeply daunting. Engaging with the authenticity he had shared tonight brought clarity to his purpose, yet also raised stakes he had not anticipated. People began to disperse, the energy morphing into discussions about potential purchases, and as they moved away, so did the heads and compliments. The realization hit him like a soft thud. His art had made waves, yes, but could he sustain the depth of each connection? Could he leverage this fleeting moment into consistent growth, rather than just a transient spark? With that question clinging to his thoughts, William watched as the evening progressed, a fire ignited but still needing stoking. He made a silent vow to himself then and there. This auction was not merely a culmination, but a stepping stone into deeper exploration, both of his artistry and of the person he aspired to become. As the final guest departed, whispers of admiration trailing behind them, William stood amidst the remnants of the evening. A solitary brushstroke in a larger canvas of a new life lay before him. The shadows of doubt still loomed, but now he felt equipped to confront them. Yet, in that stillness, he sensed the looming weight of expectations, as if success bore a hidden prerequisite for continuous authenticity. What would he have to confront, both in himself and in his art, to traverse this precarious path? The question echoed in his mind, shaping the contours of his next chapter. What unexpected challenges would arise as he ventured deeper into the art world, and more crucially, deeper into himself? William awoke the next morning to sunlight streaming through his bedroom window, illuminating the chaotic colors he had so passionately captured on canvas. The echoes of the night before lingered in the corners of his mind, a haunting yet invigorating melody. He had basked in moments of connection, felt the high notes of hope, and at the same time, the looming chords of anxiety began to thrum beneath the surface of his consciousness. His phone buzzed incessantly, waking him from his reverie. Messages flooded in, friends, potential buyers, fellow artists praising his work. Yet, in the midst of the praise, an unease stung at him. Was this the audience he had imagined? And more importantly, would they be there when the initial excitement faded? A tight knot formed in his stomach. G's words played on repeat in his head. The challenge of sustaining authenticity loomed ahead, casting a shadow over the day he had envisioned as a celebration. He felt like a delicate flower propped up by a hand that might withdraw at any moment, leaving him exposed to the elements once again. Determined to reclaim his momentum, William threw on a simple outfit, casual but polished, a reflection of the authentic artist he aspired to be. Today was about more than basking in past achievements. It was about charting a path forward. He grabbed his sketchbook, its blank pages inviting fresh visions and possibilities. He ventured into the city, his feet guiding him toward the local coffee shop where he often sought inspiration and connection. The air buzzed with the usual hum of patrons and the aroma of freshly ground coffee wrapped around him like a warm embrace. Settling into a corner, he observed, soaking in the ambiance while flipping absent-mindedly through his sketchbook. What could he create next? This question spiraled and morphed in his mind, like the swirling colors on his canvases. Filled with fresh energy, he began to sketch, allowing his hand to drift freely across the pages. It felt good to produce again, yet each stroke still carried with it the weight of uncertainty. Could he replicate the authenticity that had resonated so deeply with his audience? Leaving the coffee shop, William wandered into a nearby park, the serene beauty around him contrasting starkly with the noise in his head. Artistically charged moments often emerged in quiet spaces, but today, inspiration felt evasive. People strolled by, unaware of the internal battle he waged. He watched a mother and child playing. Joy radiated from their laughter. A pang of longing washed over him, a desire to capture such purity in his work. But capturing genuine emotions was different from transporting them onto a canvas. It required vulnerability, a risk he was still grappling with after last night's exposure. He settled on a park bench, drawing in a deep breath, filling his lungs with crisp air. It was then he noticed the small, worn sketchbook of an older man seated nearby, the artist completely engrossed in rendering a scene in front of him. Overcome by curiosity, William leaned closer, peering at the elderly man's intricate lines and textures. "What's your secret?" he asked, his voice barely breaking the stillness of the afternoon. The man paused, looking up with bright eyes that seemed to contain a lifetime of knowledge. "It's simple, really. Embrace the unknown. Let it unfold. Art should feel like a conversation, not an obligation." The weight of the stranger's words hung heavily in the air, floating into William's consciousness like a guiding whisper. Could he allow his artistry to be a true conversation? A dialogue rather than a performance? As he thanked the man and hurriedly jotted down his thoughts, A new clarity emerged. He needed to shed the fear of expectations, dismantle the barriers he had constructed around himself, and embrace a more genuine emotional exploration. William left the park invigorated yet grounded, propelled by the hope of what was possible. As he walked back home, a spark of determination ignited within him. His artwork wasn't just a reflection of himself. It could be a bridge to understanding the complexities of human experience, a realm where vulnerability bred connection. He arrived at his studio, heart racing with newfound purpose, ready to delve deeper into the uncharted territory of his own emotions, a tapestry yet to be woven. But as he stood before the blank canvas, the question loomed larger than ever. Would he find the courage to explore this raw terrain? Was he prepared to face the shadows and vulnerabilities waiting in the depths of his psyche? In the quiet of the studio, with brushes in hand, he sensed the whispers of possibility, and the looming specter of doubt still lingered. What revelations awaited him in this transformative journey? And would the path ahead be one of redemption or further struggle? The sun dipped low in the sky as William's brushes flicked against the canvas. He was filled with energy, yet each stroke seemed to pull him closer to an impending confrontation with himself. The painting slowly took shape, a swirling mass of colors reflecting the chaotic emotions swirling within him. He marveled at the way paint transformed, each layer revealing hidden depths. But rather than feeling liberated, he sensed an amplified anxiety, a pressure like a vice tightening around his chest. What if the masterpiece that was supposed to cement his identity turned out to be a mere imitation? The thought gnawed at him. He wiped his brushes clean, pausing to observe the half-finished painting. It felt as if he were standing before a mirror, a distorted reflection of who he hoped to be. Restless, William dropped the brushes and took a step back, positioning himself in front of a blank wall. It became glaringly apparent. Something foundational had to shift. He opened a drawer cluttered with old sketches and unfinished works, their potential buried under layers of self-doubt and fear of rejection. Each paper felt like a fragment of his soul, imperfect, yet bursting with emotions that were true. He flipped through the sketches, each one sparking memories of the spontaneity that had once defined his creativity. Who had he been before the fear twisted his vision? The realization washed over him. He had strayed from his artistic roots in the pursuit of validation. To break free, he needed to recapture that initial spark of exploration. Fueled by a sudden resolve, William returned to the easel, spurred on by memories of joyous experiences. Long nights spent in a paint-splattered studio, the thrill of uncharted territory. He needed to rid himself of the anchors tethering him to surface-level success and dive deeper into genuine expression. He immersed himself in the act of creation. Every splatter and swirl became an exploration of the unknown. The painting morphed, embracing rawness, drawing out thoughts he had previously withheld. Anger, sadness, joy. They amalgamated into something breathtakingly authentic. His hesitations vanished, his brushstrokes marked as victories of personal expression. But amidst the burgeoning sense of freedom, another layer of doubt began to creep in. What did it mean to embrace this newfound vulnerability? Questions spiraled again. Would this resonate with anyone? Was he venturing toward an artistic revelation, or merely shopping for the audience's applause? Those thoughts forced him to halt again, palette in hand. Emotional exploration, the old man's words echoed, stirring an urgent reaction. Reflecting on that brief encounter at the park, William understood that this quest was not about sharing his art with the masses. It was an intimate dialogue with the self. He resolved now not merely to paint for others, but to paint for himself, an expression of his inner labyrinth. As the evening wore on and shadows lengthened, William finished the painting, feeling drained, yet exhilarated. He gazed at his creation, a whirlpool of hues that mirrored the tumult within. But as he stood there, a sense of dread began to rise. Could he showcase this honest reflection? Would the world truly understand his journey into this unfiltered reality? In a haze of uncertainty, he thought of the risks to come, confronting critics and potentially shattering his earlier fears of judgment. Or would he finally find acceptance in his own skin? Standing before his canvas, heart pounding with conflicted emotions, William hesitated. The warmth of artistic freedom battled against the icy grip of insecurity. The moment had arrived. He was at a crossroads, ready to confront the tempest beyond the easel. But what awaited him on the other side? Would he emerge as an artist reborn, or would he still be paralyzed by the weight of others' expectations? As the final colors dried, a decision loomed larger than life itself. Was he prepared to unveil not just the art, but a more authentic version of himself? William awoke the next morning feeling the weight of yesterday's decisions pressing down on him like a dense fog. The painting, a chaotic outpouring of emotions, lingered in his mind, challenging him to decipher its meaning. Was this image truly a reflection of himself or an elaborate deception crafted to appease his insecurities? He leaned against the kitchen counter, the aroma of brewing coffee filling the air, and contemplated the challenge ahead. Should he hide his creation like a secret shame, or proudly display it, expecting the judgment of a world not yet ready to comprehend his journey? His resolve wavered as he replayed different scenarios of unveiling the artwork. The laughter, the critique, the possibility of being called a pretender. It was all too overwhelming. Each sip of coffee stirred a rising nervousness, igniting a simmering desire for authenticity deep within. He set his mug down, feeling a rush of determination overpowering the chains of doubt. Perhaps the first step was to share the painting with someone who understood him. A trusted friend, a fellow artist, or even the old man from the park. They would grasp the essence of his vulnerability, wouldn't they? Taking a deep breath, William decided to reach out to Mia, a fellow artist and supportive voice in his life. Their conversations always delved beyond superficial artistic discussions. They unpeeled layers of deeper truths. He quickly scribbled a message, his fingers tapping nervously against the screen. "Hey Mia, could we meet? I need your eyes on something important." As the day unfolded, he busied himself with household chores, trying to keep his mind occupied. The once comforting familiarity of his home began to feel like a suffocating cage. What if Mia's response didn't align with his hopes? Anxious thoughts slipped through, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. When the long-awaited moment arrived, Mia walked through his door, her artistic aura brightening the space. They exchanged pleasantries, yet William could feel the electricity of anticipation crackling between them. He led her to the studio, his heart racing with every step toward the canvas. What if she didn't see what he saw? He hesitated before unveiling the painting, standing like a performer on stage, waiting for the audience's reaction. With a flourish, he pulled the cloth away, revealing his creation. The rush of colors poured forth, swirling in tumultuous harmony, showcasing the raw authenticity he had dared to confront. "What do you think?" he asked, the tremor in his voice betraying his composure. Mia's eyes widened, and she stepped closer, studying each stroke with intensity. "This is incredibly powerful, William," she finally said, her voice a blend of awe and encouragement. "It speaks volumes. It's as if I can feel your journey, the fear, the freedom, the turmoil, all wrapped into this masterpiece." His chest tightened with both relief and burgeoning anxiety. But what if people don't understand it? Or worse, they hate it? The shadows of his fears resurfaced, threatening to overshadow the light Mia had thrown on his work. "Art is subjective," she replied, passion igniting in her words. "What's important is that it's true to you. If you stand by it, others may just find a piece of themselves within it as well." Mia's words lingered, rippling through him. Could the very vulnerability he felt be the gateway to a stronger connection with others? The idea danced through his mind, igniting embers of courage. Later that night, William sat before the canvas once again, heart racing, contemplating a decision that loomed larger than anything he had ever faced. Would he share it with the world? Was the prospect of genuine exposure worth risking the safety of anonymity in his artistry? As uncertainty simmered within him, one thought echoed louder than the rest. Perhaps the moment had come to confront not just the audience, but himself. The stakes felt impossibly high, yet in that tension lay the promise of growth. Standing before his painting, William realized the time had come to face the world, the doubts, and ultimately, the artist he was meant to become. With a final deep breath, he took out his phone and began to compose a post that would unveil his work to the world, praying that through vulnerability, he might find acceptance, not just from others, but within his own skin. As William Harper stood before his canvas, the glow of the studio light illuminating the vibrant hues of his latest creation, he felt a wave of clarity wash over him. This artwork, raw, chaotic, yet profoundly personal, was not just a representation of his artistic journey. It signified the culmination of his transformation. He had spent years shackled by societal expectations, chasing validation through wealth and status. But now, he was ready to embrace authenticity. In the days following the successful auction, the applause echoed in his mind. But it was not the collective adoration that stirred him most. It was the personal connections he had forged, the conversations that transformed superficiality into profound understanding, that brought him a deeper sense of fulfillment. Each interaction had unveiled a part of him that yearned to be expressed, proving that the true essence of art lay in its power to connect. He remembered Ji's advice as he prepared for this next step, her voice an unwavering guide. Create for the sake of creating. This mantra resonated as he transformed doubt into purpose. Instead of seeking approval, he now aimed to inspire others through his vulnerability. Determined to take his art to a broader audience, William devised a plan. He began a series of local exhibitions, each showcasing not only his artwork, but also the stories behind the pieces, the struggles, the victories, and the profound emotional landscapes that accompanied each stroke and splash of color. He infused his exhibitions with authentic narratives, inviting guests not merely to view, but to engage, reflect, and share their own stories. As the first exhibition opened, William's heart raced with a blend of excitement and trepidation. Yet unlike before, the anxiety had morphed into an exhilarating anticipation. The gallery buzzed with energy, transforming from a mere display space into a vibrant arena of dialogue. Attendees strolled through, eyes wide, not just absorbing colors but connecting deeply to the emotions woven into each piece. "Your work resonates," one visitor exclaimed, their voice filled with sincerity. "It's refreshing to see someone embrace their journey so openly. It's like you've captured the essence of transformation." The validation he previously sought began to emerge organically, not as a craving for praise, but as a reflection of genuine connection. With every shared story, every emotional exchange, William felt a profound shift within himself. The shackles of his past began to fall away. He was no longer the cold millionaire shrouded in layers of pretense. He was an artist committed to authenticity, a storyteller finding resonance in the shared human experience. Days turned into weeks, and each subsequent exhibition deepened his commitment to vulnerability. The canvases expanded from solitary pieces into collaborative efforts, where local artists joined him in expressing their tales of struggle and triumph. Together, they created a dialogue that celebrated the human spirit, an embodiment of what William had learned throughout his journey. He had conquered inner fears and forged connections that seeped beyond mere recognition. He had built a community that celebrated authenticity. Above it all, William found profound satisfaction in reclaiming the artistic legacy of his father, whose early dreams had been buried under the weight of expectations. He began to explore his father's own works, diving into the fading memories, bridging the gap between their experiences. Each brushstroke served as a tribute, not to wealth, but to the unyielding power of expression. With personal growth evident in every fiber of his being, William realized he had transformed not just his career, but his very identity. He stood before his latest piece, a vibrant portrayal of life through a lens free from judgment, and smiled. It represented a version of himself that had emerged from shadows, triumphant. As he prepared for the opening night of his latest exhibition, he felt an unwavering sense of confidence. The journey had not been easy, but it was undeniably rewarding. William understood the value of authenticity. He had connected with others not through status, but through shared experiences of being human. In that moment, poised to unveil his latest work to the audience, he recognized just how far he had come. He was no longer seeking validation, but embracing his truth. Standing in front of a crowd ready to see not just his art, but the man behind the paint, he took a deep breath. The applause was no longer a haunting echo, but a beacon of encouragement. William Harper, the cold millionaire turned passionate artist, had found his rightful place, and he planned to celebrate it fully. He was ready to share his voice, invite others to embrace vulnerability, and inspire transformation in anyone willing to hear his story. The time had come, and he felt empowered to seize the moment. Now, take action. You need to subscribe now to catch the next emotional journeys of transformation that define true self-discovery. Leave a like now. Help the algorithm elevate these powerful stories to those who need them. Comment below with your thoughts and theories about this journey. Your voice matters. Share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who need this message of overcoming. Don't wait. Even one more second. Show your support for personal achievements today.